Hello and welcome to Oddspedia Bundesliga Matchday 28. Last games in Germany after the international break with a lot of things on stake, especially the Champions League battle and with Bayern Munich in the Champions League. Ronan Murphy, hello.
Hello. It's good to be back for some Bundesliga action after a disappointing international break for me and so many others.
Yeah, a lot of goals for Germany, though, although also some criticism around the Nagelsmann, but we will talk about Germany in some weeks or months and the World Cup now. We are here just to talk about Bundesliga, so stay with us, guys. Of course, we know that Bayern are going to win the title, but many things to discuss, to talk about. So let me know, as always, in the comments what you think about the Bundesliga or the games. And now let's go on with the show. Well, we don't have a game on Friday. This time we have games on Saturday, starting with Borussia Mönchengladbach, Heidenheim. This is very important for the relegation battle, although it looks like Gladbach are going to stay in the Bundesliga and Heidenheim are going to Bundesliga 2. Gladbach drew with Cologne after beating Pauli, Ronan. So another win here would almost mean that they are going to stay in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, they haven't been a consistent team at times, and we've mentioned it many times on the show. But I think looking at this match, this is one that you should be confident that they can win because, Heidenheim are terrible. They are going down to the second division, like you said. They have no wins since the 6th of December. That's 14 games without a win. So they cannot buy a win anywhere, and even though Gladbach aren't the most consistent team, you still think they should have enough about them here. They beat St. Pauli, like you said, drew with Cologne. Everybody loses to Bayern, so that's not really a surprise in the last 3 games for them, and that's kind of put some distance between them and the relegation zone, and they should be confident they can pick up another 3 points here because they had a thriller that match with Cologne. It was 2-1 after just 7 minutes. The joint quickest ever in Bundesliga history that we've had a team or a match go to 2-1 game state after just 7 minutes. So yeah, it was one of those epics, and it finished 3-3. So hoping for more goals in this one to start the Bundesliga match week. Smart Bet is giving 5 stars for a Heidenheim double chance. Not sure I agree with the AI on that one. Maybe they like the odds of 250, but I am not sure I agree with that one. The last 6 meetings, Gladbach have 5 wins and 1 draw. So yeah, you can't really look past Gladbach in this one, can you? So yeah, that's just what I'm going for, a Gladbach win.
Do not touch, of course, Heidenheim. Both teams drew 3-3 previously, so perhaps also we can see goals. Next one is Leverkusen Wolfsburg. Leverkusen miss a good chance against Heidenheim to get closer to the Champions League spots after being knocked out from the Champions League. So now they are 4 points away from the top 4, 3 consecutive draws for them in the Bundesliga. So they have to focus. There is very important to qualify for the Champions League, and they are big favorites to beat Wolfsburg. Wolfsburg fighting to get away from the relegation spots, but now it looks even more difficult. Ronan, 3 points away from St. Pauli, direct relegation spots. The defeat against Werder Bremen, the draw against Hoffenheim was positive, but that defeat against Bremen looked really bad.
Yeah, it did, and there's a lot talking about how Wolfsburg have never been relegated from the Bundesliga before, and this could be, since they got into it, this could be the time that it happens. And there's also a lot of talk about the fact that they're promoting AI and the fact that they're using open AI in 50 or more avenues of the club, and then people are saying, well, this is the one season that you're using it, and despite saving €1 million a year, this is the season that you look most like getting relegated. So maybe you should focus on maybe old school methods or something like that. But yeah, Leverkusen's own methods, they have been criticised. A report came out on Kicker during the international break that the coach Kasper Holman, some of the players aren't happy with the selections he's making, believing that some of the players aren't being rewarded for good performances in training or in the matches. especially the goalkeeper, that he's not kind of clear with who he's playing goal, even after good performances for one or the other. So, yeah, there is doubts creeping in over the new coach already, which isn't a good way after we saw the way the Leverkusen started the season with that Erik ten Hag debacle. So hopefully things can be sorted out there and they can get some wins under their belt and maybe get back into the top four or challenge for that top four, because they're 4 points behind at the moment, and it doesn't look like Germany are going to get a fifth place in Europe this or next season. So yeah, the Leverkusen, they really need to pick up points against teams who are in the relegation zone or bottom half of the table. The most common result here is 2-1. The most common result in Leverkusen is 2-1. Correct score 2-1 is 850. Could be an option. Don't put a lot on it, I wouldn't recommend. And this Leverkusen usually play better in the first half, so that's what I'm having a look at here. First half goals 1.2 on average per game, whereas Wolfsburg are only averaging 0.6, because the bet on Leverkusen, it might as well be a safe bet. I think it's only somewhere around 140, so I'm going for Leverkusen to win the first half because there's a bit more value there, 187.
Must win this one for Leverkusen, indeed. Then we have a game, not sure if these teams are going to be focused in this game. Ronan, Freiburg, Bayern Munich, because Freiburg are playing Celta Vigo in the Europa League, and they are very regular in Germany. Very difficult for them to play European football next season via the Bundesliga, and Bayern Munich, with the title in their hands, of course, they have to focus in Real Madrid. So none of these teams, I think, are going to pay too much attention to this game.
Yeah, I think this could be a disappointing one. If it had been somewhere else in the season, maybe we might have seen a more entertaining match. And for that reason, it's kind of hard to predict that Harry Kane is going to score, or Michael Olise is going to assist, or Luis Diaz is going to get a goal or assist. It's hard to pick out the player bets in this one, because who knows exactly who's going to play in this match, with Bayern Munich having one eye on the Champions League, or maybe both eyes on the Champions League. And Manuel Neuer is expected to be back, Bild are reporting, and he will play if he's fit, because he doesn't really need a rest after being out injured for a few weeks. 𝗛𝗲𝗿𝗀𝗏 came back to Bayern Munich early because he was sent off for France during the international break, so he might play as well, because obviously he didn't get to play in both games for France, so he might have a bit more energy about him. There was also rotation for some of the bigger teams. Germany rotated a bit, and some of the bigger teams that only had friendlies because they've already qualified rotated a bit, so that could see maybe we might get 60 minutes out with some of the key names for Bayern Munich or something like that. But we might not necessarily see Bayern Munich break the goals record at the weekend. They're on 97 goals in the Bundesliga, just 4 shy of the record for a single season, 101 that is. And Uli Hoeneß, the godfather of Bayern, you might as well call him, he was asked when he thinks they will break it. He said in 2 games, so not in this one. He doesn't think they'll score 4 this weekend. It'll be against St. Pauli the following week. So yeah, Freiburg, they've won their last two games in all competitions. They have no defeats by 2 or more goals in their last 5. The most common result in this one, when it's in Freiburg, is a 2-1 win for Bayern Munich. So I think this could be a win for Bayern Munich, but not a massive win like we usually see. So that's why I like to look at Freiburg Asian handicap plus 1.5. So if they lose by 1, you'll win some money. So that's 187.
Of course, pay attention to the lineups before you bet on this game. Next one is Hamburg, Augsburg, 2 teams that should be safe. By now, I don't think they are going to be in any risk. Hamburg now 9 points away from 6 points away from St. Pauli after the defeat in Dortmund. Augsburg lost the last 3 games. That's why Hamburg are slightly favorites here.
Yeah, Augsburg not on a good run at the moment. They did play Leipzig, Dortmund and Stuttgart, so it's not really surprised they lost any of those 3 games. So Hamburg must be a much more favourable tie for them. We'd be more confident heading into this one. Hamburg have the most draws in the Bundesliga this season, with 9, along with Mainz. Augsburg were only able to win 1-0 earlier this season. Hamburg have not been great at home recently. They've no wins in their last 3 home games. They lost to Leipzig and Leverkusen, then they drew with Cologne. So this one, I'm going to do my best Tom Rennie impression and complain about West Ham for 15 minutes, but also say that this one screams draw. That's 360.
Okay, yeah, it's a good idea. Indeed. The next one, Hoffenheim, Mainz, very important one. This one for the Champions League battle. Hoffenheim level on points with Leipzig after the heavy defeat in Leipzig. So they are out, actually, of the top four. Remember, they drew with Wolfsburg. It's only one win in the last five games for Hoffenheim. And Mainz, they are alive in Europe. They are playing Strasbourg in the conference. And they are in good form, beat Frankfurt and Werder Bremen +6 now with the relegation zone.
Yeah, they're unbeaten in 7 matches. They're on a great form in all competitions. Like you said, they have one eye on Europe, but they have been fantastic of late in the Bundesliga. If we had seen them play like this in 2025, the way they're playing in 2026, they'd probably be in the hunt for a European place in the summer. So yeah, it's definitely a season of two halves for Mainz so far. And Hoffenheim, they've been great most of the season. Obviously they lost 5-0 before the break, like you mentioned, but usually they're playing very well. They have 20 points more than Mainz. They have 21 more goals scored than Mainz. And I like to look at one particular man to score a goal. It's not Andrej Kramaric, it's 𝗵𝗔. He has been in good form for Kosovo during the international break. He scored in the 4-3 win over Slovakia in their playoff semi-final. So if he starts, if he's fit after the international break, he could be an option because there are high odds on him to score a 2.65 anytime goal scorer. The most common result in this match is a 1-1. The most common result in Sinsheim is a 1-1. And smart bet, I'm going to go with the AI this time. It's going for a Mainz double chance. And looking at the form of Mainz recently, you kind of got to agree with that. I know Hoffenheim are a team who are battling for a top 4 position, but like I said, if Mainz's were just 2026 results taken into account, so would they.
Yeah, very good 2026 for Mainz. Well, Hoffenheim in the battle for the top 4 with RB Leipzig playing in Bremen. Now Werder Bremen 4 points away from Pauli after beating Wolfsburg. A very important win. This one is a good reaction from them. 3 wins in the last 4 games. So I guess it shouldn't be easy for Leipzig. Same streak, 3 wins in the last 4 games.
Yeah, both 3 wins in the last 4. Great form from these two teams kind of heading into this match, and that's why it's hard to predict necessarily whether this is going to be a 1x2 kind of game. So it's the Bundesliga, so we'll have to look at goals. That's where we usually look at the Bundesliga. RB Leipzig looking to Christoph Baumgartner to score for them because he has 3 braces already in 2026. Only Harry Kane has more in the top 5 leagues in 2026 with 4. Bremen also got some good news this week themselves. This match will come too early for him, but Victor Boniface is set to be back this month, and they expected that he wouldn't be back at all this season after he had knee surgery in January. So that's great news for Bremen as they kind of look to pick up points. But if you look at the last 16 meetings between these sides, it's 10 wins for Leipzig, 1 win for Bremen, and 5 draws. So history is not on Bremen's side in this one, but I still don't trust Leipzig to definitely win this one, even though they won 2-0 against Bremen at home in November. I've trusted in Leipzig before and it's backfired on me, and this season I'm not gonna fall for that this weekend anyway. I might fall for it this weekend, but not this weekend. Both teams to score yes is only 148, so the odds there aren't great. So you have to look at the over goals market, and I think this could be a high scoring match because these are two teams that can on their day score plenty of goals. Over 2.5 goals has happened in half of Werder Bremen's matches this season, and 68%, so over 2/3 of RB Leipzig's match this season. So over 3.25 goals is where it comes in around 2.
Okay, 53 goals scored by RB Leipzig. Bayern Munich 97 is absolutely crazy. The game of the weekend is Stuttgart Dortmund, 3rd against the 2nd. Stuttgart 3 points more than the Hoffenheim, and they beat Augsburg 5-2 after being knocked out from the Europa League against Porto. It's 4 wins and 2 draws in the last games for Stuttgart, and Dortmund keep winning. It's 3 consecutive wins. It didn't affect them. The 𝐻𝐿 also in the Champions League. How do you see this one? I guess it's another one where we should expect plenty of goals.
Yeah, that's where we kind of have to look at it. And you look at Dortmund's last game, that 3-0 draw against Hamburg, they created 6.2 XG, which is the highest of any club in the top 5 leagues this season. So yeah, was a game where they just kept creating chances. But 3 of those, probably the reason why it was so high is because 3 of those were penalties. They've never been awarded 3 penalties in a game in Bundesliga history before. Obviously missed the first one, but Remy Bensebaini scored the other 2, so he could be their penalty taker going forward for the rest of the season. And there was more kind of talk about 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗏 and his future at Stuttgart over the international break, because there's even speculation that he could be a target for Liverpool if Slot is to go in the summer. So yeah, he spoke to 𝐿𝐿𝐴. He said that he's at VfB with absolute conviction and wants to continue being as successful as possible. So yeah, the Stuttgart are aiming to get back into the Champions League again this season. The Dennis Undav is a key part of that. He said he scored again against Augsburg. He said, I'll still catch Kane. I managed to make up 1 goal on this match day. I'm not sure he's going to finish as the top goal scorer this season in the Bundesliga, but he can keep scoring goals. He could be a good option for an anytime goal scorer in this match, but we've got to look at goals in this one. Stuttgart's last game, 5-2 win over Augsburg. Dortmund's, like I said, a 3-2 win against Hamburg. This match was 3-3 in November. Both teams scored yes and 3 more goals in each of the last 3 meetings. Total goals over 3.25 again in this game, 193 for that. But you could go for both teams to score yes and over 3.5 goals at 230.
Goals, and goals. Hopefully in this Stuttgart Dortmund, 58 goals scored by Dortmund, second highest tally in the Bundesliga, for Stuttgart 56, the third highest one. So 2 teams, of course, that they are scoring plenty of goals in this Bundesliga. And we have 2 more games for Sunday. Union Berlin, St. Pauli to avoid relegation, now in the bottom 3, 2 points away from Cologne. Lost to Freiburg and to Gladbach in the last 2 games, but Union Berlin are not in great form, so they must travel to the capital and get a point at least, Ronan.
Yeah, they kind of need to do something here. St. Pauli, the 16th in the table, and Union, I think they're doing all right this season. They lost 4-0 to Bayern in their last game, but at home they've been much better, and against other teams that aren't Bayern, most teams tend to be better. Their last home game was a 4-1 defeat to Bremen as well, so their form of late hasn't been great, but throughout the season it's been pretty good. And I think St. Pauli's form throughout the season, terrible. It's no wins in the last 3 games. They're 17th in the away table with just 2 wins away. Union won this one earlier in the season in 1-0 in November. The most common result is a 1-0 to Union Berlin. The last 3 meetings between these 2 sides, both teams score no. So both teams to score no could be an option here at 170, because these aren't teams that score lots of goals. St. Pauli are definitely not a team who score lots of goals. They're definitely not a team who score lots of goals away from home, or pick up points, or pick up wins away from home. So Union to win to 0 is what I'm looking at, 325.
And the last game, also for the relegation battle, is Frankfurt-Cologne. Cologne are only 2 points away from St. Pauli, falling in the table. No win since the 30th of January. And Frankfurt also with issues, lost to Mainz. Looks like the atmosphere is not good with Riera. How do you see this one?
Yeah, I think this game is probably coming at a good time for Riera. Maybe he can get the fans back on his side, because I think they were expecting more from him. We were all kind of expecting more from him. The way he speaks in the press conferences, he's a very passionate guy. He puts everything out there, and maybe the performances on the pitch haven't necessarily been living up to the way he's been talking off the pitch. So he needs to kind of put the results, put his money where his mouth is, as they say. So it was a very disappointing result in Frankfurt before the international break, and probably maybe Riera was happy the international break did come around, because he was able to bounce back or get a break from that. Because they had gone 3 games without defeat before then. They hadn't been kind of super convincing or scoring loads of goals like we saw earlier in the season. So he needs to find the right balance between being a bit more defensive than they were in the first half of the season, but also getting those goals back, because they need to be able to score goals, especially against teams like Cologne and matches like this. At home, they usually tend to be good. They're under Riera, and the last 3 games they've had at home, they've had 3 wins, all wins to 0. Cologne are terrible on the road. They haven't won an away match since October the 9th. or since October. That 9 games without an away win. And Frankfurt in this match, it was a thriller back in those days where we were enjoying every single Frankfurt match. We were betting on individual goal scorers in them. We were saying over 3.5 goals in every match. It was 4-3 back in November. Hopefully we can get another one of those, but I'm not going to guarantee it. I think Riera set them up differently. I think this could be a low-scoring win for Frankfurt, but I think it should be a win for Frankfurt at 2.28.
Yes, not the old Frankfurt. Be careful if you are going for the over. In this case, Cologne started the season so well and now in difficulties for the last games this season. Well, this is it for our Easter weekend in Germany. No games on Friday this time. So just remember, we are starting a new month in April, so you have the chance to participate in our tipster competitions and win money for free. And also check out Rivals, where you can create your own tipster competition. Of course, we will have as well a competition for the World Cup, so be tuned. We are going to have plenty of things in our website regarding the World Cup. Ronan, let's go with your safe bet.
My safe bet is the last match of the week, so for our group bet across the team, we'll be maybe waiting on this one and hoping it comes in. I'm going for a Frankfurt double chance, 138.
All right, and the ACCA?
My ACCA is Leverkusen to win, Stuttgart and Dortmund to have over 2.5 goals, and Frankfurt to win, and that's a total of 489.
Brilliant, Ronan. Thank you. See you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.